Hi, it's Tesla here. I'm just back to tell you about chapter 4, which is called The Illusion of Reality, the Dragon, the Lion and the Shaman, as part of the legacy of the Starseed Wisdom, awakening pure potentiality to other realms of existence, which you can find at any Amazon store. So previously we talked about all of these different markings that were showing up in the house. Creepy type hands, claw-like marks, children's hands, all strange sorts of markings and symbols were appearing everywhere. And then we had sort of other odd paranormal type things starting to happen. One of them was tobacco smells. So you would smell these wafting through the air at various times. And one night there, it sounded like there was a dragon roaring over the roof. So some very bizarre happenings. One night there, I swore that I could see my daughter as a little girl in the corridor. And when I went to investigate, there was nobody there. And one night my daughter woke up screaming because she reckons there was an old man came out of the ceiling, an old man with long grey hair. So all of this was happening, and then one night I woke up to this shrill noise, a really, really shrill type noise. And as I held my breath to investigate, I was fumbling around for something to protect myself with and trying to find the light at the same time. And it sounded like it was in the direction of the kitchen, on the kitchen bench. So I finally found the light switch. I turned it on and expecting to be hit over the head or see somebody there. And the shrill noise immediately stopped and there was nothing there. And I thought, oh, that's very odd. And I glanced at the time and it was 3:11 in the morning. And since my awakening in 2011, I hadn't been able to sleep between the hours of 2 and 4 effectively. And every time I glanced at the clock, it always had that number 11. And I would often see 11:11 everywhere I went, particularly if I needed to know about something or notice something in particular. It would show up. So so that was interesting. So the next morning when I was cleaning up the kitchen, I happened to notice this stuff on the kitchen bench, and it was like fine dust particles akin to moon dust. You could pick it up and it just melted away. So I got out the dustpan and brush and I threw it out the door and thought nothing more of it. So in the meantime, all of these weird things kept happening. And then there was an apparition that started to morph on the wall, which was not hands this time, but pretty much the shape of a dragon or a reptilian being. It had an elongated head. You could see its rib cage and you could actually see the ribs, the outline of the ribs, but it had very long leg bones if you want to call them leg bones, very tall. And it just, morphed overnight on the wall. And then it started appearing on the slider as well, which I would rub off like the other hands, but it would come back. So, yeah, that was very interesting. And I decided I'd go on a holiday for a while because it was starting to get a bit much. So I went on a holiday, and I had this feeling I needed to go into this crystal shop. So I went in, and there was this rhodolite crystal in a locked glass case, and it was summoning me to pick it up and buy it. So I really liked it, so I thought, okay, I'll buy it. And I took it home, and I decided to meditate with it. And as I was meditating, it started to pulse in my hand. So I did my meditation, and as I was going into a deeper trance, I happened to open my eyes and look up at the window. And there on the window, there was an apparition morphing into what I would describe as a cross between an indigenous human face and a lion. Its face kept changing between the two. And I thought I was seeing things, and I kept rubbing my eyes, but it was still there. And prior to this, I had been experiencing what sounded like footsteps on the roof. Now, I put that down to possums, because possums have, what we say, they have very heavy boots on. But there was something very strange about this particular, if it is a possum or was a possum. It would only walk in a certain direction and in a pattern, like a grid. And it did it night after night after night. It didn't change its pattern. And it was always on this one side of the house and not on the other side. And it'd be around about the same time every night, without fail. It was like clockwork, and it would wake me up with its heavy marching, walking steps. So as I was looking at this being on the window, I started to think, well, maybe it's got something to do with what goes on at night on the roof. So I telepathically started trying to communicate and ask it questions about what it was and who they were. And it would pulse in my hand if I asked for a yes or a no. And basically it was telling me that it was my protector and my guardian between the worlds, and yes, they were who it is on the roof at night. So I'm no artist, but I decided I'd try and sketch what I was seeing, because nobody else could see it, although the others could obviously see the apparitions on the window sliders and the walls. And yes, I drew what I consider to be the lion aspect of the being. And then other beings would show up as well, strange looking ones. One of them looked like the sloth out of The Lion King. And I gave them all different names and I drew them. But in the end I thought, this is all, I'm making all of this up in my head, so I just wiped them away. But this one was consistent. No matter how many times I wiped it off the window, he would be back. So I named him Bashir, because Bashir means bringer of glad tidings. so I continued to communicate when he appeared on the window in my meditations. So that was all of the weird things. We also had some feminine hands that showed up as well as the male hand, very, very feminine looking. And one in particular left a warning for my daughter. Overnight she could hear this voice of a woman like she was trying to tell her something, and it ended up that she had a urinary tract infection and she had to be raced to hospital because she had sepsis. So, and that warning came from this being in the night. So there were some good aspects, some other strange aspects, and the weirdness continued again after that. So in the next chapter, I'll talk about how all of this was moving into a puzzle that I had to solve and what happens next. Okay, thanks very much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.